Hi class. I want to do a little quick screencast for you to go over project one, which is your logo, which is due next week Sunday. So there's a number of things I'm going to talk about. Want to you guys to pay close attention to. The first thing is really read through the requirements of this project. I know some of you, this may be the first time you're doing a logo. Maybe it's the first time you're doing a logo in Illustrator, so there are going to be some challenges. So I try to give you as much information. It's a lot of information so that at the beginning, if you read through it, you'll be able to get through some of it. So I want you to really read through the requirements. I also put a number of sketches on here that just to show you, developing a logo really starts with sketching. It really starts with coming up with an idea. And I also put the rubric which you will be graded on for this particular project. I also put some successful examples that was in my last class, and I'll actually go through some of these in some more detail. The first thing I want you to pay attention to is these four links that are on here. The first thing is, when you start a project like a logo, you really want to figure out, look at some inspiration for that logo. What are you going to create on? Now, your particular, you have to create a logo for a company, a nonprofit organization. So you really want to take a look at that. I look at Pinterest a lot. So if you go to Pinterest, and I have that link saved, but if you go to Pinterest and you log into, let me just log in here. You'll be able to see my Pinterest board that I've saved, and you can add to this board. You can find your own, but just great examples of great logos, excellent typography, use of color. This requirement for this project is no more than 3 colors. So that's the first place that I start. Also, I gave you a link about the elements and principles of design. It also gives you some of the really basics, line, shape, direction. It's a really good website. It's really simple. Some of the principles of design, think about balance, gradation, repetition. This could be used for not just the logo project, but for all projects in this class. But specifically, we're talking about logos. You also want to take a look at the link I sent you about the Gestalt principles. And these principles are basically, the starting points of your logos. What really good design starts with, similarity, elements that look similar, sort of belong together. You have sort of this continuation. So you have this sort of swoosh going through the edge. It follows your eye this way. Closure, which is, your eye naturally closes. The negative space in this image. So you don't need to have a line there. So that's a very strong image. It's an image that we're all familiar with. Proximity and how close are things and further away they are. They look like separate images, but when the same images are close together, they look like one image. So how close in proximity are elements to one another, right? This proximity here makes it look like a tree, even though the images themselves are images of a figure. And figure ground has to do with positive and negative shape. So there's something that's in the figure, which is in the front, and the ground, which is in the back. So in this case, you have what's called complex figure ground, which you have which element is in the front, which is in the back. You can look at the dark part of the tree to be in the front or at the back. Or you can see the leaves are in the front or the back. So really take a look at the Gestalt principles. I also wrote a blog, and this is a lot of information for one project, but this could be used in really every project that you do in design going forward. It's not just for this class, it's one project. It's a multitude of things that you can use, resources that you can use for any creative process. So I wrote this blog a few months ago, and it's really showing you about the creative process. I do it in 8 steps. Talk a lot about what I just mentioned, discovery, looking at, different things that are out there. What are you really trying? What's your purpose? And you can go through the different steps all the way through. I give examples of a project I worked on in the research. I'm not going to go through each one of these, but you can go through and you can see I've given examples. I do word association, mind mapping. So for every project that you do, you can use this creative design process as a starting point for you. And here I have a mention about the Pinterest. You may have other resources you might want to use. Pinterest is not the only one; it's just one of many. So really take a look at that project, that blog, and hopefully that will give you some context. So going back to some of the requirements that you want to pay attention to in this project is you should want to have an original design. Make sure your logo is completely vector, that you don't have any bitmap Photoshop images in there, and don't import any photos and try to do any kind of photo manipulation in Illustrator. It should be completely vector. Use at least 2 Pantone colors or spot colors, and no more than 3 colors. I'll actually show you in Illustrator where that I have a tutorial on that already about the Pantone colors. Your logo must be converted into black and white, and you should submit your rough sketches and variations with the project. So don't just send me the logo in Illustrator. You have to create it in black and white. You have to create it as a PDF, and you also have to create it as I want to see your sketches. Right? Design 1-page designer statement as to why you use the logo, what's your concept. As I mentioned here, the final logo needs to be in Illustrator format as well as PDF. And so you must create 3 final versions of the logo. 1 color with 2 Pantones, a black and white version, and a color and black and white side by side reduced 50%. So you have to have the logo reduced half to the size that you created. Your artboard size should be 8.5 by 11, and logo should be centered inside the artboard. Okay, so let's look at some of the examples that I thought that were pretty successful in my last class. So here we have one logo where the name of the company was Book It. Why I think this logo is successful is because it's simple, it's clean. They're using no more than 2 colors, red and black. This gray is considered a tone of that black, so actually it's just 2 colors. So the idea is pretty simple. It's kind of clean, not too much color, not too much clutters. Confusion going on. If I had to reduce this logo down really small, I can still kind of see it. So that was a pretty successful logo. So let's close that one. So this one, what I like about this logo, what I think is successful is the designer, did some really good sketches for their logo and scanned them in. And whether you think they're, the greatest sketches or not, doesn't really matter. It's an idea. You put the idea down. Here's another idea. And then they actually came up with sort of the final logo. Really bold typography. This really comes forward. You have that look of the field, kind of soccer field, but it's not exactly a rectangle. So I thought this logo was pretty successful. It had good balance, even though it wasn't exactly centered. There's a figure ground we talked about, so the soccer looks like it's in the front and the green looks like it's in the back. So I thought this logo was pretty successful. I really like the variations and I really like the sketches of this particular student. There's another logo that was, I think, pretty simple. It got straight to the point. It used more typography. You don't always have to use an image or a graphic in a logo. In this case, it was about science for kids, so it had that for like high school students. So it had that look of the periodic table kind of feel, but I thought it was effective. The typography was kerned a little bit, so it was a little closer, and it wasn't just typed out from the computer. They actually went in and spaced the type out a little closer. So again, when the logo gets reduced, it's still fairly readable. Even the number 3 is fairly readable at a very small size. This particular logo, I think it's successful, even though I'm not crazy about sort of rough edge with this typography. It doesn't really necessarily match together, but I thought it had some potential because I think this mark itself could be very memorable. It's something that you will kind of remember. I think the 3D was a little too much. And I think the student actually revised this and just focused on getting the C and the W. And I do allow students to revise projects once they turn it on time. So, give a great effort and then you'll have an opportunity to, tweak it. I'll give you some comments and you have an opportunity to tweak it. This particular logo was the black and white version. So I'm not showing the color version on this one. Here's another logo. Lax is the name of the company. They sell like snowboards or paddles. Water boards. And so I thought this was well balanced, between the top and the bottom. The typography was clean. I probably would have suggested to remove the outline on here. It's not very necessary. I'm not crazy about the color scheme on this one so much, but a good start. It was very balanced, easy to recognize what it is. I would have also suggested a secondary name because lax by itself doesn't really mean anything. So maybe a secondary name for this logo would have been really helpful. Here's another logo that uses that sort of brush effect. Be careful when you're using these brush effects. What tends to happen when you use a brush effect is that you get these really, not the best looking line quality. And these little thin little lines, what tends to happen is when you reduce these down, they tend to get very all mushed together. So not a good solution when it comes to that line quality. But I think the logo itself had potential with the typography and the use of the earth. So I suggested to the student maybe just keeping that line clean to kind of marry with the typography. You want to have that, we talked about that similarity in the Gestalt principles. So this doesn't have good similarity because this rough line and this clean line, they don't really mesh together very well. So has potential. Logos will always be one of those things where you have a lot of polarizing comments. People will like it, they won't like it. But you want to have a strong typography. You don't always have to have a mark, but if you do have a mark, make sure you have an icon or a mark that you've created in Illustrator, and make sure it's unique, it's outstanding, it's memorable. You want people to remember it when they see it. And when you think about all those great logos like Nike and McDonald's, and those marks themselves, you don't even need to see the names of the companies because it's so recognizable, it's so memorable, it's so outstanding. So do your research on your nonprofit companies, do your research on associations, see the types of logos that they would use, and come up with a great project. If anyone has sketches they want to show me prior to the project, feel free to email them to me, or if you want to put in the student lounge or under the projects section would be the best place to do that. To find the successful examples, they're under the content, and I sent you the link earlier. But under content, projects and assignments, project 1 successful examples, you will see them here. The best place if you want to send sketches is to go to the project 1 section questions right here and leave a question here. Or if you want to put a sketch and get feedback from other students, please feel free to do that. You don't have to, but if you want to send me an email to get some sort of general feedback on the right direction, feel free to do that. I know this weekend is going to be a challenge with snow, and what's the difference on the East Coast. We have a lot of snow and people are going to be probably home for the next few days. So if you have time and you want to send me any correspondence about the logo, about the project, or you're having trouble getting stuff done, please contact me, my email, or if you want to leave please don't leave any personal stuff in the comment section, but if there's a comment you want to leave for the rest of the class, please put it in the project question discussion area. All right. Hope this was helpful to you, and go out there, do your best. Variations. Really try to work on those logos. Don't just do the first thing that comes to your head to try to get it done. Logo design is all about doing, redoing, reworking, trying different colors, and lots of different variations, different typography, different sizes, scale. It's a lot, but you'll come up with a really, really good project if you just read through and follow the directions. All right. Hope this was helpful. Bye.